So at the time of this vid going up, we are officially 1 month away from the release of Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie. It feels like yesterday since we got the announcement that this sequel was happening, and right on schedule, the new stuff is starting to ramp up. Last week was the most active week for the Mighty Movie since the official trailer dropped back in June. And within this past week, we got our first clip of the film, our first TV spots with new scenes, and even new characters. You know the drill by now. We're going to take a look at all these and see what we can uncover. So we're going to start this off with the first clip we got on last Monday, showing the pups getting their powers from the crystals. This clip was featured on Good Morning America, however, they didn't show off the full clip, just the beginning portion of it. However, the next day, Paramount Pictures on their YouTube channel released the clip in full. Most of it's just bits and extensions of scenes that were in the trailer, however, there are a few noticeable things to take note of. First off, the movie's score. We hear a section of it towards the beginning of this clip. I like what I'm hearing out of this score so far. After this, we find out that it was Chase that caused Marshall to have his little wipeout in which the fireball almost hits Liberty. So, like the first movie with Marshall and the Avenger City hologram, he's going to have a wipeout that wasn't his fault. Well, partially in this instance. After this, we have Rubble finding out that he has the ability to be a wrecking ball. We'll get back to him in just a sec. But in the background, you can see Liberty and Rocky stuck together. Now, I've seen some people going around and saying that this is a ship moment between the two, but I don't really believe that. Because as we know, Rocky has magnetic powers in this film, and with it, it attracts other metallic objects onto him, such as utensils that we see on him in a few shots. And presumably, the pup's pup tags are attractive as well, which is how Liberty ends up getting stuck to Rocky. It seems like they cut out the bit where it happens, but I got a feeling that this will be a comedic moment of some kind, which could be why they didn't include it, but your guess is good as mine on that. Anyway, back to Rubble and his wrecking ball. I'm just gonna let this clip explain itself.
Whoa, Rubble! Are you okay?
Rock and roll!
This is probably my favorite part out of this clip with Rubble after destroying the crates. He says rock and roll and puts up the rock on symbol. Very nice attention to detail there. Overall, it's a good clip all around, but there is one more scene from this power testing sequence that isn't in this clip, but in one of the later TV spots that I want to mention. This is the one I'm referring to.
Come on, here we go.
So my guess as to what's going on here is Liberty is trying to use her power, and for whatever the reason is, it just doesn't want to work, even though that she has a crystal on her. So it looks like Liberty won't get her mighty power at the same time as the other pups, and if this is true, it ties into what we saw in the suit up area where everyone's suits are glowing, but Liberty's isn't. So why doesn't Liberty get her power unlike the others, even though she has a crystal? I'm unsure as to why, but with this, it basically replicating what the first movie did with Liberty receiving her gear and joining the Paw Patrol in the latter part of the film. And now in the sequel, the same seems to be happening, where she won't get her power of Elasticity until the end of the film. I don't really know how to feel about this. If the Mighty movie was the film that introduced Liberty into the series instead of the first movie, then I'd be cool with this. Hopefully there's a good reason why she doesn't have her powers yet and how she'll get them when the time comes. Let's now move on to the TV spot we got on Wednesday. The first scene we get is an extension of the scene from the official trailer where Ryder and the pups are heading towards an unknown location. Now, the original theory I had for this either could be the opening rescue, presumably at the waterfront, or the ending of the film, and I was more leaning towards this being part of the opening rescue. However, that may change because in the background with this extended scene, you can see the aircraft carrier HQ. It doesn't really make sense for this scene to be part of the opening portion of the film because the aircraft carrier would need its own introduction in a good way, and just throwing it at the start wouldn't be the best idea, in my opinion. This is why we mentioned in the trailer breakdown that a good way to do it would be to have the carrier be introduced after the lookout tower is destroyed, and it would lead into the events of the pups getting their powers in the carrier. Just my view on the matter. After this, we get a nice overhead view of the team heading towards the center part of the city. I like the split path here. Not sure if this and the last scene are tied to one another, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And Another thing to mention, Skye is still absent in all this, and I'm still wondering where she is at the time of both scenes. And speaking of Skye, let's move on to our new scenes from this spot. The first one we get is an overhead view of Skye and the mighty meteor, and as you can see, Skye doesn't have her paw on the meteor in this compared to the other scene we saw in the trailer. But as she puts her paw closer to the meteor, this wave of energy flows from the back of the meteor to the top and then right in front of Skye when she's about to touch it. Not sure if this will cause her to get knocked back in any way, but considering how the Mighty Pups TV movie did this with the meteor glowing so much and giving off a burst of energy in which the pups and heralds were close enough in order to give them powers, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the case. After this, we have Skye toying around with this container, a good amount of strength coming from her. I'm guessing it's the same container that she nearly got crushed by in the first trailer. After this, we have Skye using her flight powers in the sleeping quarters. This is after she has crashed through the wall, but I can't help to note the fact that Rubble is still sleeping through all this, even after Skye crashing through the wall that jottled everyone up but him. Guess he's a heavy sleeper. Afterwards, we get another scene of Skye and her jet. This is most likely a continuation of what we saw in the toy promo last month with Skye and her jet as she's about to confront the giant meteor, making its way towards Adventure City. She barrels past this explosion behind her, which I'm guessing was a small chunk of the meteor that she is able to destroy with the lasers from her jet, the ones that we saw being shown off in the toy promo. I find it interesting that she's using a control stick to control her jet in this instance. Not that I'm making a big deal about it. This is the control scheme with jets in real life. Maybe this is how she's able to shoot the lasers from her jet, but I figured she would use a normal control pad like the one she did with her copter in the first movie, and like Marshall in the trailer using his glowing paws on the steering wheel to activate his power, its ability on his vehicle. Same with Skye and how she's able to activate her lasers on her jet. Now, Skye's last scene is a bit interesting. It's an extended shot of her punching through the meteor that we saw in the official trailer. But what's interesting is off to the left of the shot, there is a bit of land. Not sure if this is Adventure City or some random location, but the reason I mention this is because it wasn't shown in the original scene from the trailer. It seems like they edited over this, but I wonder what the reason for this decision could be. Also, in the beginning portions of this, Skye seems to be coming up from somewhere. Maybe she ends up losing her jet in this, or she's coming up from Vance's lair after they defeat her in that confrontation we saw in the trailer. Not sure on what this could be right now. Let's switch over to Victoria Vance as she gets a few new scenes in this TV spot. I'm going to start with this one here as Vance looks over towards Adventure City as the mighty meteor makes its way towards the surface. You can also notice the symbol on her back, which might be a V, not only for her being named Victoria Vance, but also her nickname being V. I can see this scene being the first instance that we see of Vance in this film. After this, we have Vance sitting next to this radio. I have no idea what the significance of this is. Maybe she's listening to the news about the meteor making its way towards the surface, or did she happen to meddle with the meteor in some way and is kicking back and listening to the chaos unfold? The latter option I'll explain my reasoning for in just a bit. The last new scene of Vance is just her using her lightning abilities during the confrontation with Ryder and the pups at her lair. Nothing much to say here. But I do have much to say on who we're talking about next. They were long overdue for new scenes from this film, and finally, they're getting some. I'm talking about Tot, Minnie, and Nano, aka the Junior Patrollers. First time we see them is in the elevator of the Adventure City Lookout Tower, where I'm assuming they'll be introduced to the rest of the pups, looking adorable as all can be. This is before the Lookout Tower getting destroyed, so at least we know they'll be introduced before the events of the meteor crashing and destroying the Lookout Tower. This could very well tie into this next scene where we see Ryder, the rest of the pups, including the Junior Patrollers, sliding down the Lookout Tower slide. Love how the Junior Patrollers are spinning as they make their way down towards the bottom. You also notice the pups don't have their headgear with them, so we know where we are timeline-wise with the film right before the meteor is about to crash, and the pups are going to help everyone get to safety, and the Junior Patrollers could play a role in that as well. The final new scene in the spot with the Junior Patrollers is this one, where they are in this mailbox with a bunch of debris surrounding them outside this building, which I don't think we've seen this one before. I thought it was Humdinger Heights, but it didn't really add up. There are two important things to note of here. One is there is a top hat that looks like Mayor Humdiner's, but it isn't. You can see a bit of red towards the middle of it. Can't be sure on what the reasoning is for that. Second thing to note, when does this take place at? Either after the opening rescue or after the meteor crashes into Adventure City, which would explain the damage that we see in this shot, though it's hard to make a judgment because of the lighting. For one, it could be late in the day around sunset, which is what seems to be happening here, but this could be just the lighting from the building giving off that impression, and it could be at night, but they don't really give us much to work with, so this one remains a mystery for now. So that does it for the junior patrols and the TV spots, but there is one more thing I'd like to show off, and that is this right here. How could you not like these three? Oh, and also we find out what the sidecar really was for on Liberty's motorcycle, to carry the junior patrollers since they don't have vehicles yet. There are a couple of other miscellaneous scenes in this spot, like the pups running up to their new vehicles, Liberty saving Dolores with her sidecar, the meteor crashing into the back of the lookout tower, and Rubble doing the moonwalk, cause why not? So that does it for the first TV spot, but before we talk about the other one, I want to show you some new character posters, specifically the celebrity cast characters. Let's start with the characters we already know, beginning with Ryder. He'll be voiced by Finley Epp, Dolores by Kim Kardashian, Chris Rock voicing one of Humdiner's kittens, Victoria Vance, aka V, the main antagonist, voiced by Taraji Henson, and Sam Streaners, whose name we found out yesterday, the newscaster who we saw in the trailer, voiced by Lil Ro Howery. Strainer is wearing the headgear we saw the other human characters in the trailer, so he'll be at the vent where the meteor crashes into the lookout tower. After this comes the new characters we haven't seen yet, and for the longest time, Kristen Bell, James Marsden, and Serena Williams characters were kept under the bus. Wasn't thinking we'd ever get to see them before the film's release, but finally we know who those characters are. Let's begin with Kristen Bell's character. Her name is Janet, with the same fish we saw in the official trailer. We do see Janet twice in this last TV spot. First, when she is standing outside this little work area, which I think is a scrapyard, judging by the writing on the building in the back. Not sure what this lines up or who Janet is talking to. I tried looking at the fishbowl reflection to get an idea of who she's talking to, but there is nothing to be found. The final scene we see her in is this one standing beside Hank, who is James Marsden's character in this film. Looks like the Paw Patrol just arrived based on the quote he says. I'm guessing this occurs at some point during the giant meteor sequence, again, maybe with the pups just arriving on the scene. And lastly, there is Serena Williams' character named Yoga Yvette, who gets the award for the most cursed looking character poster out of them all. I don't think Yvette's going to have much of a role in this, like Janet and Hank will. Maybe more of a Gus type role where she just shows up for one rescue and never appears again for the rest of the film. Next up is Marshall shooting fireballs from his fire truck, presumably at Victoria Vance. This could be a continuation of him pressing his glowing paws on the steering wheel to fire the fireballs that we got in the trailer. We also get another scene of Skye as a bunch of meteor pieces are heading in her direction, as she prepares herself to punch right through them. But by far the most important scene out of this clip and both TV spots is this right here. In the first part of this TV spot, we see water flowing through these pipes and eventually into a sink. And lo and behold, out comes Zuma. Nice to see more of him using his ability, but the big question is, where is he in this scene? The answer? He's in Victoria Vance's lair. Here's why. In another scene, Rubble, using his wrecking ball ability, is able to enter Vance's lair thanks to this hole in the wall. And if you pause it right before the scene ends, the surrounding area inside is very similar to that of the scene we just mentioned. So this fully explains why Zuma wasn't present during the initial confrontation that we saw in the official trailer, when in fact he was flanking Vance and taking her by surprise by coming up behind her. So that's one mystery solved, but with that, it opens another. Back to Rubble entering Vance's lair. If you look towards the back of the building, you can see this contraption. We saw this in the trailer, but we didn't have a full view of it, and now with this TV spot, we got a better view of it. And looking at it, this device looks like a ray of some sort. If this is the case, then what's its main purpose? There are two options I see for this. One, it is a directional ray, similar to the device Harold makes in the first Mighty Pups TV movie to bring the meteor to the lookout tower. If this were the case, then Vance could be directly involved in the meteor crashing to Adventure City by using the ray to change its course and head straight for Earth. The second option is the one I'm more leaning towards, and that is the device is a growth ray. This would explain how Mayor Humdinger is able to grow into a giant in the film, which unfortunately would mean that he doesn't get a crystal or powers, and would also explain how there's a giant meteor heading towards the surface at the end of the film. So let's see what happens with this ray. I'm interested to see what its purpose really is. And with that, we are finished. Apologies for taking so long to do this. I've hit a couple bumps on the road when coming up with theories and scenarios for these scenes. It really put it at a standstill for most of this. But let me know down below what you thought about what we've seen with the new scenes and new characters over the last week. Thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you all later in the next one.